which comics are the most meaningful to us? And why did Cindy Rose give us such a challenge to think about?
That's
I
right.
am excited for this. This is we're back with Comic Book Ketchup, and we're not just gonna catch up on what we're reading new. We're gonna touch on that. But Will's wife, Cindy, well, he's gonna tell us about a challenge she posed to him, and we're gonna make a whole run of Cindy Rose's challenge. This whole episode, it's Cindy's challenge.
It is Cindy's challenge. Yeah, yes, good story. It's been fun. It's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. So we're excited to do this. You guys know Comic Book Ketchup is one of those YouTube exclusive episodes that are brought specifically thanks to our patrons. Our patrons sponsor it, and we do 4 episodes YouTube exclusive just because of them. So we would not do this if there were no patrons. So shout out to all of them. You guys rock. We love you. If you guys want more content like this, giving us more money lets us have more time to do more stuff. So, Patreon's a good place to do that, as well as Captivate, Apple Podcasts, all that kind of stuff. Just sponsoring the show lets us do more and better. So if you're like, man, this quality sucks, if you're like really annoyed by that light, guess what? I need money to get blinds. That's on you.
I was just thinking that when you were like, I was like, yeah, it's a little bright behind you, man. And you're like, are you annoyed by that light behind you? It's like, oh, did you just read my mind? Are you Professor X? What are we
It
doing?
irritates me so bad, and it's on all the shows. It's because like evening
Yeah.
sun comes from that direction, and those blackout curtains are not blacking out very much. So I need blinds to go with the curtains.
You just have an aura. You're just. I'm seeing an apparition of holy
that's all.
Joshua.
That's all it is.
Holy
That's all it is.
Joshua.
But hey, we already thanked our patrons. We already did all the little stuff. We don't do as much legwork in the beginning for this stuff because we're just like jumping right into it since this is sponsored already. So we're gonna do a lightning round, talking about what comics we've been into recently. My list is digital, so I got to pull it up. So Will's gonna go ahead and just start running with stuff.
Here we go. The lightning storm's coming. We're going to get in and get out fast. I'm still really enjoying the DC Absolute line that they have coming out, kind of all in DC, a new reboot, all this stuff, fresh comics. I like the alternate versions and takes on Absolute Superman, Absolute Batman, Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Martian Manhunter has been a trip. It's very trippy. The art's trippy. I love it so much. Absolute Green Lantern has been just first issue. I wasn't that impressed, but we'll see. And then Absolute Flash has been a little trippy. I like Jeff Lemire. He's the author, and I'm not quite sure where they're going with this. So not quite. The jury's still out on that one. And then, of course, the big event for Marvel is One World Under Doom. So there's all these tie-ins. Doom is the Sorcerer Supreme and taking over the world. It's a little on the nose when it comes to worldwide and national politics at the moment. But I'm interested to see where this is going to land and what's happening with that. And then I continue to love Immortal Thor and talking with that with Ryan. Each issue that comes out, we'll record an episode on his podcast about that comic, and Al Ewing's been weaving.
What's that podcast?
It's called Across the Bifrost. There you go.
Yeah.
And so we're talking Thor. When Thor shows up in comic, we talk about it, and it's been a little fun. And the build up is that going to probably there's this tagline: when immortals die, or even immortals can die. So they're probably going to kill off Thor in some way, whether he's going to be killed off and have his own adventure in Valhalla or another kind of dead zone, and other heroes will step up. I'm not quite sure if they're going to quit printing Thor for a while and the reboot under another header. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure it's out there in the preview somewhere, but they're going to kill Thor, and then we're going to figure out where to go from there. So those are the comics I'm reading. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to be annoying to myself and do a bunch of extra stuff here. One, for those who are like, wait a minute, immortals die. Immortals can't die. That's the whole thing. You can't say even immortals die. Guess what? We're Christians. We have a long tradition of talking about omnipotence and why that doesn't mean God can do everything. And we keep redefining what omnipotence means. And on our show recently, we've had somebody on to talk about maybe we should drop the word altogether. I don't agree with it, personally. I'm for keeping omnipotence. I just think we need to continue in the tradition of defining what we mean by that. Anyway, other legwork stuff. One, this is my first black IPA. I just tried it while you were talking. I was like, man, I meant to tell him. I love
What'd you think?
Yeah,
That's good.
Actually, this is really good. Yeah, I like this a lot. let's see. What were the other random things that I was going to put in? Oh, your shirt. Where'd you get your shirt from?
It was sent to me on because I'm a patron member,
Oh, that's
and
what I thought. I was like, that actually looks really cool. I'm sorry. There was just sidebar stuff. Yeah.
and we did an exam breakfast for our campus ministry students this morning because it's reading day and they have exams this week. And I wore the shirt while I was flipping pancakes, special lucky magical pancakes. It's going to give them a grade letter higher on their exam
Nice.
if they eat it. And we had a few ask, what does your shirt mean? I was like, oh, let me witness to you about geekology. Let me be a good witness to how you two are geekologists, whether you know it or not. And I was an evangelist for Since My Geekology and being geekologist. So yeah, and they got all the Star Wars references I gave them, so that was good.
I'm trying to decide if it's worth it for me to be a patron of my own show just to get the shirts they are giving.
No, I
I like
know.
them. I'm like, this might
Yeah.
be this could be a worthwhile venture. Also, last thing that's not related to the lightning round we're currently doing. Do you have to take a drink every time I pull this up since it has the Kingdom Hearts icon on it?
I didn't know that was Kingdom
If I
Hearts
say
icon.
Kingdom
I didn't
Hearts.
know. I didn't know that was a Kingdom Hearts. But when you make a
So
reference to
now,
Kingdom Hearts,
yeah.
now
Okay.
thankfully there's only water in my Star Wars cup right now. So, but I'll face
Water.
Vader.
Water is Lutheran for tequila. Just kidding. But oh man. So yeah, I don't know. I never could. I tried to get into the Absolute series and I didn't. It just wasn't for me.
It's a fun
I've
take.
only read the
I love
first one for Superman and Batman, and then I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't care.
man.
I'm just
Sorry.
tired of this.
Sorry.
I'm just tired of like rehashing the same characters. I just want new things. That's
And,
all.
but that's what
Being
they're
lame.
doing with these characters. It's the same characters, and they're not rehashing. They're telling a different angle of a different origin story in a different
Yeah.
universe. And I like to see the different takes of how the character would be different or the same if they were in a different context or things happen differently. So in the Batman, Absolute Batman, for instance, they're not millionaires. Their parents are not. His dad was killed in kind of this mass shooting because his dad's a teacher and took the kids to a zoo. And at the zoo, there was a mass shooting, and so his father was killed, and bats were involved, a part of that. So here is Bruce trying to figure out, just a working class man, working guy who's working out, and he's pretty beefy, but still has a connection to bats because of what happened on that day and some trauma, and he's working things out. So the art's been fantastic. Superman, it's a little different. He's not shot away as a baby, never knowing his parents, but he comes to Earth already as like an older teenager who experienced a lot of life on Krypton. So how would his life be different? Is raised by his own parents in that context. So it is a different angle and different things that happen with those characters. I love. It's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, I mean I do get why people like it. I think the problem is for characters I'm not that attached to. I'm like I don't need a new take on a character I already don't care that much about. Like Superman's cool. I like John Ken a lot better personally. So like maybe when he makes the Absolute Universe, I'll be like, yeah, cool. Um, but like I feel like if they did it like Marvel did it, and it was like Moon Knight or even Doctor Strange or Kamala Khan, I might be like, okay, yeah, this is cool. I think it just has to do with how attached I am to the character.
Oh, well, guess what? And this summer, they're doing an X-Men event where they are doing giant size X-Men and telling like classic X-Men stories as if Miss Marvel was there in there. Kamala Khan was there.
Okay.
So she's like time travels and a part of it. So
Might
what
pull
would
me
affect
in.
her? So I'm going to read those stories as X-Men fan, what those stories could look like if she was involved in these classic. I don't know if she's going to time travel or hop somewhere or some portal, but she's going to be a part of those stories and see how that ties in.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we'll get together and talk it again. You'll read it as an X-Men fan, and I'll read it as a not X-Men fan who just really likes Kamala Khan.
yeah, and then we'll talk about it. There you go.
Yeah,
There's our next.
yeah.
There's our next combo catch-up.
What I have been reading since I talked about what I haven't been. Man, this is a long lightning round. What a thunderstorm. What I have been reading lately, it's been weird because there's been such a long break from the comics I really want to read, but Marvel vs. Godzilla is going on right now. It's like a little mini series. Godzilla fighting some Marvel people. So we had Fantastic Four, we had Hulk. I think tomorrow morning comes out the next one, which I'm struggling to remember who it was. Is it Spider-Man next? It might be
It's
Spider-Man.
Spidey. Let me look at my list. I actually keep a
I might
list
have
of what
to
comics.
have to ask Christian what he thinks about that.
Oh, Godzilla versus Spider-Man. Yeah.
Man. Justice League Unlimited has been ongoing. Man, that first couple,
good.
I was like,
I
this
like
is
that.
fun. It's fun but predictable. Then Swamp Man showed up and Aquaman showed up, and I'm like, it's starting to be not so predictable. And I don't know. I like what they're doing there. I'm having a fun time with that.
Yeah.
This one's over, but Captain America and Volstagg, I thought that was fun. I think it's over. That one's done, right?
Yeah, those are just one shots. And I talked about that with
that was fun.
on the Across the Bifrost. Did you listen to that episode?
Yeah.
Did you?
Oh yeah. I was like, man, Ryan, where was my invite? And then I was like, oh yeah, I go to bed at like 7, which is like 5 his time. But they got some stuff I'm really excited for coming up too. Hunger in the Dusk has been on a long break and it's infuriating. But issue 4 should be coming out or just came out. I got to double check on that. Ice Cream Man 44 is coming out this summer. Excited for that. The last few issues, it's going back to some of the stuff that happened early on, continuing with our continuity instead of just random one shots, which it is still random one shots, but I like seeing what's going on in the universe and having that story continue, so it's kind of fun. Then a weird one, because I like my mashups. I like Godzilla, Marvel. Last year was Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League. This year, I'm really excited for what's coming soon. Sonic X Justice League or XDC. So we got Sonic the Hedgehog, Silver, Shadow, Knuckles, Tails, all of them, and some DC characters hanging out. I have no idea what the plot's going to be, but I'm like, man, what a fun group of characters. It's going to be probably really cheesy, but I love that stuff. So I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Those are good. I like the matchups. I like that you had the mainstay of comics and their ongoing storyline and people in creative teams. But when you mash up with other IPs and see how they would interact, that's a good way to kind of cross over and bring people in. So anyway, you can get new readers.
A lot of times, like what they're doing with Godzilla, it goes back to like the classic stories with the characters. So I don't have to be like up to date on Fantastic Four. I'm reading it, and it's like their first encounter with Galactus just happened. I'm like, okay, yeah, I actually know this part of the story. I don't need to be up to date.
Right.
So I like when they do stuff like that. It's kind of fun. Also, the hints of a Galactus versus Godzilla happening. Man, I hope they go there because that Fantastic Four one, it was like so over the top and everything I needed. Like Silver Surfer version of Godzilla versus galactic cosmic power of Ghidorah, and I'm like, this is everything my little nerd loser heart needed.
Yeah, when you give Godzilla the cosmic, the power cosmic, Fantastic. And he levels up that way, that was didn't see that coming. That was good.
Yeah, I was happy. All right,
cool.
Let's move on from the lightning round. Finally, the world's longest thunderstorm. Not really. I lived in Florida. Always at least 30 minutes. Yeah,
we had to catch up. We had to catch up on some comics. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. Yeah.
Also, hey, if you guys jump in live, no one is right now, but if you do and you want to shout out where you're listening from, we'll be happy to shout out from the show or shout out some of the comics you're listening to. We'll mention them out loud. But we're here because of Cindy. Will, for those listening who are like, who's Cindy or what is this challenge I'm referring to? Fill in a blank. What we're doing today.
Yes. So mild correction with Cindy's name. She is Dr. Cindy Morton Rose. She has her PhD in education. And her last name's hyphenated, so it's Morton Rose. But yes, Cindy. So my dad passed away last December, and we're going through their house and going through his clothes and going through his books and what do we want to keep, what do we want to throw away, what do we want to donate, all that stuff. And it got us thinking about like, if that happened to us, if we needed to go through a house, if we were moving, if we need to get rid of it, if I for some reason got teleported away to another universe as a superhero. And Cindy's like, where did Will go? What am I going to do with this stuff? She said, with all your comics, you have like 40 short boxes of comics back there of 20 years and not only a decade when you were a kid, but the last 25 years you've been collecting comics and buying comics on Wednesdays. What are we going to do with all these things? So I thinned them out last year and kind of sold them back to my comic shop for store credit and picked out the ones I liked, but I didn't quite let a lot of them go that I should have. So she said her challenge was, all right, if you were going to create just one box of your most meaningful comic books that you would want to pass on to your children or great grandchildren or great grandchildren to say, these books are really important to your great granddad. And here's why, what would you put in that box? So it forced me to think, all right, in all my boxes of comics, what would they be? Exactly. That's kind of what my closet looks like. Exactly like that. And so what are you going to do with those? So she said, all right, create a few boxes. All right, if you're going to create one that has like the most expensive comics, like what's a comic book box that don't give this away to the local library because it's the first appearance of Deadpool and you could probably get like $500 for it, right? Or the first Kamala Khan, or Spider-Man in his black Venom suit from Secret Wars #8 in the 80s. So I have some of those comics, and so I'm going to create a box that has the most expensive comics or the most valuable comics money wise that you could sell on eBay and get a little bit of money, perhaps buy a new car after, or put a down payment on a car if you sold this,
Yeah.
these 10 comics, and then she said, all right, then another one that maybe your favorite storylines or comic book runs, you're like, hey, these are good stories that are important to me. And then the big one is, if you're going to grab this, if there's a fire in the house, or you had to escape and you had to run, you're going to grab one box of comics. What are you grabbing? And so that's what she did. So that's what I did. And it's been a lot of fun over the last month or so, really picking through and looking. I'm not completely finished, but I'm getting there. I still have a lot of boxes to kind of go through and think through, but there's some that immediately come to mind. That one. I'm going to put that in the box. I'm going to put a little sticky note on it to describe to my family years from now why I picked that particular comic. And it's been a lot of fun. It's given me a lot of joy because I love these comics. And sometimes they're just you get them on a Wednesday and you read it and you're like, cool, that was fun. That was entertainment. And you put it away, you never see it again. And then there's some you're like, that was a fantastic comic. That means a lot to me. And I'm going to hold on to that and put it in a special place. So that's kind of what I'm doing, the sorting, the collecting. What box do you put them in? How do you classify these comic books as single issues, and also a handful of graphic novels in there too, that I want to make sure get in the box because they mean a lot to me.
Yeah. And I imagine that sometimes some stuff probably belongs in multiple boxes. Like some of the most memorable are also probably the most valuable because like sometimes they get value because they were so memorable to so many people.
Right.
We're probably one of them on occasion.
Yeah.
So
There's a Venn diagram that they kind of overlap. There's definitely some that overlap a little bit in terms of, and there are some older comics when I was a kid in that meaningful comic book box that are probably, they're worth $50, $100, $20, something like that. I bought it for 60 cents back in 1982, but right now there's worth $50 or whatever.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go through. We're mostly going to focus on the most memorable box today, but I want to touch on some of the other ones, like the most valuable, the biggest story arcs, that kind of stuff. I'm going to start with something that I was afraid I wasn't going to get to mention because of things. So actually, neither of the ones that are on the slide, but there are some graphic novels or comics or insert here that maybe the reason that we're so attached to them, that are so meaningful to us, are less because of the storyline or an individual issue, but rather because it representative of the world, right? Which is, both of these I think do it. I've not read Kingdom Come for DC yet. I still that one day that's going to be an all reading count episode, I think.
Yes.
When I finally read what Will told me to read, I even got it ordered from my library, so it's in my library in Lancaster now. Which also, hey guys, cheat code: if a book is too expensive, ask your library to buy it, and they just will, and you can rent it for free, read it, and put it back. Problem solved.
Yeah.
And then other people get to enjoy it too. So, but Marvel's is one that was really big for me. I can't see that slide well enough to tell you anything about it.
Kurt Busiek,
and Alex Ross,
Yep.
Also, art's amazing, and it does a really good job showing like the highlights of the Marvel universe, and like it does that. I actually one that's the comic's not that special to me, the story's not that special to me, but there's a graphic novel of the Dead. There's several graphic novels of the Dead Space universe that are being re-released this year, which I should have mentioned in the lightning round because that's something I'm really excited about.
I got one in the mail this week too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Where it was like I sent it to Will not because I'm like, oh, this story is really meaningful to me, but the universe that it takes place in is very meaningful to me, and it's a really good door into a world that means a lot to me. So, do you have any like that other than like these here, or like I mentioned Dead Space for me, like that maybe the graphic novel or the thing is just a really good entryway for people to see a world that means a lot to you?
Yeah, there's definitely storylines, times that, so there's definitely times in my life that these comic books remind me of where I was in my life when they were coming out, when I was getting them on a Wednesday, or when I bought it as a kid, or a time in my life when I was really getting the comics with my friends. Or, Kingdom Come is a special place for me because that's the book that launched God Loves Geeks in South Carolina when we started our God Loves Geeks book club. That was the first one we read together. So there's an issue of that in my box. I have issue 2, the only issue I have. I also have the graphic novel, but I put issue number 2 in that box. And if I hadn't started the God Loves Geeks book club, if we haven't started that, then who knows what, when I moved to North Carolina, if I were to start that God Loves Geeks book club and talked about it on a podcast, and then Joshua heard it, and then he was like, hey, we should geek out on things. And then here comes Systematic Geekology. And then I would have never met Trip, and then not have gone to beer camp and had other relationships and talked with Jason Aaron on Trip's podcast, and then met Ryan. So the whole like snowball effect of some of these books of things that represent me a lot to me. And so that's a part of it. But yeah, they open up worlds, or they have a, like when we do geekology, when we are geekologists, we do geekology together. We talk about the world it represents, the questions it asks or proposes to us, and how we answer that helps us view the world and see the world a different way, or understand our neighbor in a different way. And to me, that's really, really important, and that's what good stories should do, whether they're on the big screen or printed in your hand.
Yeah, and as an aside, Alex Ross does the art for both of these.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Ross is amazing.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through box 1. Most valuable. Let's start there. What are some of the ones for you that are like the most valuable comics that you own? Because like realistically, I probably have a few that are valuable, but for the most part, actually, I have the one Spider-Man right after Barack Obama became president, where he was on the cover. So I think that's probably the most valuable one I own.
Talking about valuable, you talking
lied.
about valuable in like money, or talking about like meaningful?
Yeah, right.
Valuable.
Well, I know meaningful was one of the boxes. I thought that you had several boxes. One was like most
Yeah.
valuable. One was
Yeah.
But also, I do have to throw out there, because this is really weird. I have some of the like original Spider-Man comics in a box in an attic somewhere, because my grandpa got them for my mom, who never cared that much. So
Oh, you need to find those. Yes, you need to find
I know
those.
where they're at. I just refuse to open the box until I have something where I can grade them and get them like sealed and stuff. Because I'm like, I'm just gonna leave that box alone. I know where it's at. Yeah. Anyway, Will, what about you? What's some of the most valuable stuff you own?
Well, I think right now I found the first appearance of Deadpool. and that was because a church member was like moving and said, you can have my kid's box of comics, and their kid was like is my age, and I was like, you sure they don't want their comics? Yeah, I don't want them to come hunt me down years later and say, where are my comics? They're like, no, he literally told me give them to Pastor Will. I was like, okay. So I was flipping through, and I found most of it kind of late 80s early 90s comics. They're barely worth the paper they're on. They're fun at the time you read them, but then I saw New Mutants 48. Is that it? Ooh, first appearance of Deadpool. So I was like, that cover looks familiar. Oh my gosh, that's the first appearance of Deadpool. So yeah, that's a couple $100 if you get it graded. It jumps up to like thousands. I do have the original first print of Spidey in the black suit from Secret Wars. That's awesome. When I bought it off the spinner rack as a kid. And then I do have the first Miss Marvel that I got graded. It's like a 9.6, 9.8, something like that.
Which Miss Marvel?
Kamala.
Oh yeah,
Kamala.
I haven't got mine graded yet, but I need to.
Got it graded. And then also the first appearance of X-23 is Wolverine's clone. I got that graded too. So those are a couple $100 yourselves. Yeah. And there's some other comics that you look on eBay, and that could be anywhere, depending on the condition, from $8 all the way up to like $75, depending on what kind of condition it is or what they're selling it for, the market is. So you're always looking out like the new character in the movie, like maybe somebody shows up and becomes really popular in the Thunderbolts movie this week. Then, I might have that person's first appearance. I need to find that and pull it out, and the price goes up, kind of like stock. So yeah, those are some of the most valuable ones are worth that I do not want to give away in a yard sale.
Well, I got a quick fun story, because I mentioned that I also have the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel issue 1, which G. Willow Wilson, my favorite author, just point blank, fantastic. But I thought that I gave my only copy away. Back at the first Comic-Con ever to happen in Matthews, North Carolina, me and Keno Kennedy, one of our other hosts at the time, were able to have a table, and we did some like live podcasting stuff going by, and someone came by and was asking about some of the stuff we had. And one was like a younger girl who was just like, I don't know if kid's the right word, maybe preteen. I'm not really sure. I'm terrible at guessing people's age. But he's like asking about it, like, well, I'm not really allowed to go and like learn about some of this stuff, and like she was talking about like some of her family had to do with it, but I couldn't quite understand everything he said. And her dad was there, was like, well, that's not the Quran. You can read that, like that's fine. And I was like, here. And like in my brain, this whole time, I was like, that was like thousands of dollars. I just gave it to this random girl who was interested because I'm like, that feels right. And I was so upset. But then I found whenever we were moving, I was going through all my comics. For some reason, I forgot that I bought every variant of it, so I have several more issues.
Wow, that might be more.
Yeah,
that might be more expensive because it's a variant cover and lower print run.
I thought that I gave my only one away, and it's like actually, I have way more, and I'm not giving them away. I'm just not going to go to Comic-Con until I sell. Just kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do something weird. We're gonna do a second lightning round. Yeah. Before we get to our main stuff, because there's like probably tons of stuff we would put in these boxes, and I'm not even going to talk about like my top ones. I'm going to talk about because we've done that before. There are episodes of me talking about Hellboy in Hell. There are episodes of me talking about Captain America and the Winter Soldier. There are episodes of me talking about Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. Those are probably my absolute top memorable ones. I've already talked about them, so I want to talk about some different stuff this one. The original Amazing Spider-Man run, that's something that means a lot to me. The first comment that I think got me realizing that I like just the whole format, that it's not just like the stories, was probably DC's Salvation run. I've mentioned that here before.
Yeah, I've never read that. I need to.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay,
well, I think it's so good. It's been a while since I've read it. I'm going to buy it again because I read it at the library when I was in high school. So my tastes have changed since then. But all the DC villains get shipped off to whatever planet for some reason, and you see them starting to form their own tribes and coalitions kind of stuff, and you get like a whole Joker versus Lex and all the DC villains on one side or the other. Actually be great for one of those polarization episodes. Maybe we'll do a bonus episode on that.
Oh, yeah. I like to do that.
Yeah, it's fun. But it was a fun run to me. It was the first thing that I was like, oh, I think I just like this format, because like that wouldn't work as a TV show or a movie, but I like this.
Yeah.
So those are two big ones for me that I probably won't go through too much more. I mentioned Ed Brubaker, Captain America. You mentioned Brubaker's Winter Soldier on a recent episode.
Yeah.
Also,
I think that particular cover right there, is that number 12 or 14? What does it say in the top corner? That particular comic made it into my box. Yeah, number 14. I have that comic, and I think it's that particular one is Steve Rogers uses the cube to kind of bring Bucky's right mind back to himself, and so I put that in my meaningful box, because as I was reading comics in the 2000s, early 2000s, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that, when this came out, it mean a lot, and such a good run, and the art's so good. But then, yeah, it also launched a big part of the MCU and what that is. In fact, Bucky is going to be in Thunderbolts this freaking Thursday. So I think, it has a monumental run and importance of comics as a whole, but also when I was reading it, you could tell you're reading something great. So that's in my box. That's in my box.
The best MCU movie was based off of that.
I agree. We agree.
Woo!
Woo!
One of my non-bad opinions. Also, Arkham Asylum. I love the video games. So I picked up the graphic novel for that. So that's always like, I don't like the graphic novel as much as the comics, because it's like way trippier. Yeah. But it's still meaningful to me just because of like what all it inspired and how much I love those games. And
Grant Morrison. Nice.
It was fun. It's very trippy, but it was good. I probably like it more now that I'm a little bit older and more familiar with the format of comics. So I might have to read it again soon. But yeah, Will, anything else for the lightning round before we get to like the main memorable picks that you chose for this episode?
No.
Lightning round 2.
I don't think I have anything there. Well, we just moved to those other books. I can talk about comics.
Lightning round 3. Everything Scotty Young ever wrote makes my memorable book. Rocket and Groot. We mentioned that before. In fact, you're part of this story where like I was reading it during the time that I had my accident, and then I picked it back up with you for an episode of Systematic Geekology. And then we met Scotty Young in person, and I got a picture with him. And man, that's just because of like all of what happened to me. That story means a lot to me. Then I picked up Middle West, which we've talked about before, and I'm want to do more episodes on it, so that's not going to be one of my picks today. I don't think. I don't remember. Uh, but Middle West means a ton to me because it's a lot. Oh, actually, it is one of my picks. Anyway, Middle West is the story of a young man in kind of a fantastical world, and his dad becoming a storm, and like abuse, and how abuse is passed on generation to generation, and how do we break the cycles and still acknowledge that our parents just aren't bad guys, even if they are abusers. Sometimes they're also victims. And what do we do with that knowledge? It's just such a meaningful, powerful book. He said it was, I think he said that was the one that was the closest to him personally, Scotty Young. The Me You Love in the Dark is another one. Twig, another one. Ain't No Grave is recent, but that's also like pretty much everything Scotty Young to me has been deeply impactful. So all of his, I had to do this lightning round. Otherwise, all of my picks would just be Scotty Young picks.
That's good. That's good.
So there we
I
are.
love
Third
it.
lightning round. We're gonna end that. Will's gonna tell us about his first two picks. I did them in twos, so I didn't have to change the layout of the slides.
That's so good. All right, these are two big ones, and where are begin? Can you make those a little bigger on the side? Let's see. Oh, there you go. All right. So first, Uncanny X-Men 171. I bought this comic off the spinner rack, riding my bike to school when I was in elementary school at Newell's on Wrightsville Beach, riding my bike from the south end of Wrightsville Beach, heading to Wrightsville Beach Elementary School. I pulled into Newell's on the way home and used my lunch money to buy this in a candy bar. So yes, and one of my favorite characters. All four, all of the characters on the cover. I didn't know much about Rogue at the time, but all those characters, some of my favorite. And not only Chris Claremont write this, but Walt Simonson, the legendary Thor author and artist, was the guest artist on this particular book. But I remember that cover. I was like, "What? Welcome to the X-Men. Hope you survived the experience." Oh man, junk! I'm getting this one, and then just every page is great. Now, does the story hold up? Does Chris Claremont's writing hold up for present day and age? I don't know. There's a lot of words, but in terms of the dynamics on the page, it is fantastic. So I put a sticker on that. One of the first comic books I bought with my own money off the spinner rack when I was a kid, Uncanny X-Men 171. Now, second wave of comic book collecting. I stopped collecting in the 90s and early 2000s because I just kind of got out of it. I always kind of kept my eye on comics and geeky things, and big Star Wars fan, loved all that, Lord of the Rings. But in terms of collecting comics on a weekly basis, stopped doing it. But first Father's Day, Hannah was born in June, and right around Father's Day. And on that first Father's Day, Cindy bought me an X-Men comic, an older X-Men comic with Colossus on the cover, and said, "Hey, keep being a kid, keep being you." It was kind of a nostalgic purchase and gave it to me. I read it. I was like, guess what my new hobby is? I'm jumping back into comics. And then right when I started going to the comic store and kind of learning where the comics were and what I liked and what I wanted to grab, they launched Astonishing X-Men with Joss Whedon and John Cassidy. And the big thing, Whedon was not as problematic as he is now. Back in the day, the hype around him writing comics, but coming off of Buffy and rumored to write other movies and stuff. Man, that Astonishing X-Men run, Gifted, is just so good. And one of my favorite X-Men characters, Colossus, was dead at the time. And on this particular issue 4, spoiler alert, they bring him back. And the way they bring him back and the way they tell the panels and how they resurrect him and the mystery behind it. And he doesn't use a lot of words. He just lets John Cassidy do his work. One of my favorite artists of all time. Rest in peace. He died a couple years back in his 50s, way too young to pass away. But yeah, this bringing Colossus back, I felt literally, the excitement from turning page to page, panel to panel to see what would happen, and the surprise at the end, goosebumps. That comic made me feel was pretty incredible. I was like, yep. It just confirmed why this medium of geeking out and storytelling is one of my favorites, and never looked back when it comes to collecting comics.
Yeah. I not to be that guy, but I feel like that's back when they did the Death and Resurrection stuff better in comics.
Yeah.
Like Captain America coming back, that was awesome. Bucky Barnes coming back in the Winter Soldier, awesome. And then at some point they realized if we just kill people and bring them back, a lot of people buy the comic. And then they did stuff like recently with Kamala Khan, like I will kill her, and now she's back in X-Men.
Or they learn they can market it. They're like, we're going to drive up sales
Yeah.
by saying, oh, this person's going to die, or the death of Wolverine, the death of this. They're not surprising us with like, oh my gosh, that just happened in a comic. What's going to happen? We know these people are going to come back at some point, but you
Yeah.
take away the surprise and you build up the event and you try to say, oh, you're going to want to make sure you get on this, buy this issue because it's going to be a collector's item because this is when we kill Wolverine.
Yep.
And you're like,
Like what they're doing with
no.
Thor.
And what they're doing with Thor, but I think with Thor, they're going to kill him, but they're, do those Norse gods ever die? They go to another realm, and you feel like we're gonna be transported with him to another realm, and he has to deal with failure in a different light. So it's a little different, but yeah, what you said is how they kill off characters and bring them back. There's a way they did that in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. It was a little bit more surprising, and didn't have a lot of marketing behind it to try to a gimmick to get you to buy more comics or store to buy more comics to.
Yeah. And that's the
make
thing.
money.
Like, I love Kamala Khan, but I felt like all of that was a gimmick. I feel like her
It
being in the
was.
X Men
It was.
still feels gimmicky to me. Like I'm like, she just doesn't feel like she belongs here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like Spider Man. Like I like Spider Man when he's in the X Men, but making Spider Man an X Men would just be, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, suddenly made Spider-Man a mutant rather than he got bit by.
Yeah.
Like he's always been a mutant. It's just the Spider that unlocked his mutant abilities. We were like,
Yeah.
if like,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Christian wouldn't.
That's how I've been feeling. I'm like, I just don't love this.
Yeah,
I do want to say though, I think with Immortal Thor, I don't think there's ever this expectation that he's going to truly die and come back. I actually think that they're going to more wrestle with the question of what is death, especially for a god, which is going to be really a lot more meaningful, a lot more interesting than what they did with Kamala.
cool.
But anyway, we digress. Let's jump into two of my picks. These are not like my most memorable. They're like some memorable ones that would be fun to talk about that I haven't already talked about way too much on the show. Yeah. And I'm cheating with the first one here, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Azula in the Spirit Temple. Cheating because I think it was just released as a graphic novel, not as a comic.
Yeah,
I don't think it was released in issues.
yeah, it's like a mini graphic novel or something. Yeah, volumes.
Yeah, but man, it was really good. It was meaningful to me, not because Atlas particularly like the most important thing to me or anything. Although I'm advocating for some stuff in the show in the future, maybe you guys check that out. But what's cool? So this comic graphic novel takes place after the Avatar: The Last Airbender television series, which is really important to me. Me and my brother used to watch that every year together, all the way through, because it's just something we like to do together. In this story, though, a lot of the Fire Nation, different characters that we did follow that were villains, had redemption arcs, right? Azula never did. And I went into this partially hoping that she would, because she's always just been bad. And we see some characters get a little bit of redemption. We see some characters trying to reach out to her. But we see what happens when someone just doesn't want to be redeemed, even when they're faced with every opportunity to do so. And for me, it was just really challenging of like, how many times has like Will or somebody approached me, like, Josh, this about yourself, that the dollar in the parking lot, whatever. It's like I have an opportunity to change, to redeem part of myself, to maybe be a little bit better, and I just choose not to. So to me, that it's like I don't know. It's a good prophetic tale. It's a warning of what happens when we refuse to accept change.
Cautionary tale. Cautionary tale.
Yeah. So I love that one for that. Like it's a meaningful story. Invisible Kingdom. Issue 4, I think, is the one I have here. I had it like go back because I read it as a graphic novel, but this particular issue, it's G. Willow Wilson, my favorite author of all time. Even though Scotty Youngs wrote more comics that are meaningful to me, G. Willow Wilson has wrote a lot of comics and novels that are meaningful to me, and so just overall, I would say she's probably my favorite author. Christian Ward is doing the art here. He won, if I remember, it won the Eisner. It was a sci-fi series that she did. Great comic series, but issue 4, so we have like two main characters, one that grew up religious and is kind of breaking from religious things. A lot of G. Willow Wilson stuff has to do with like religious trauma or LGBTQ stuff. This is no exception. One character grew up with kind of religious stuff that she's breaking away from, like coming out of a nunnery, seeing the evils of religion as well as the evils of government. Not something we see in today's world. And then another character is kind of like working for the government, sort of, and breaking away from that. And we see these different groups discovering stuff they shouldn't discover, being placed in situations they shouldn't be in, and trying to figure out like how do they survive and also do what's right in the situation that they're in. But what was really cool is the two characters, because one grew up religious, still has a lot of that religious baggage, religious ideology attached to her, and the other very much is like just out for herself. This was the one issue where we kind of see them actually realizing that they have something together, where they are building that relationship. I don't think that they fell in love in this issue yet. I think that's later on, but this was the first issue where you see them clicking, and where they're like, oh, "Okay, I see you, you see me. For all my baggage, for all my other stuff, I see you for who you are." It was just a good issue. I loved their relationship. So this one issue where you see them finally starting to click and understand one another, I was like, oh, yeah, that's where it's at for me. I love characters, I love relationships, and it was a good time.
G. Willow Wilson does a great job, and yeah, if you can do like characterization of people and character work along with sci-fi, but also with religion, that's what she did well with Miss Marvel too. Is that kind of like she's a deeply religious person, and how does her faith impact how she lives her life, but also how she is a superhero, or how she does relationships, how she does community, and to have those dynamics a part of things in those books. I think G. Willow Wilson's just a master when it comes to that kind of storytelling, and to set it in space and sci-fi era. You would think like, oh, you progressed away from religion. No, religion is still going to be a part of the human condition and human nature for
one of
the duration.
I don't think it's in this issue. I think it's in issue 2. But one of my favorite things they do in that series, that's just really cool, that's probably relevant to our world. The one species that one of the characters comes from has like 6 different genders, and only one of them is like actually childbearing. So it's really interesting because you already have this like weird transsexual, different genders kind of ideas, and then this one person's like, yeah, we've been waiting for someone from your gender. We need you to kind of propagate our community, but then you're following this religious order that's not going to allow you to do that. And it's just fun because you get these gender questions completely reframed because they have 6 different genders, and it's not a question of like, are you male or female, but rather, are you propagating our thing? Are you falling to religion? And is this religion even worth falling to? What are our expectations on people? Yeah, I don't know. It's really well done.
Yeah, it's that whole like, what you inherit, and then what you deconstruct, and what you reconstruct, and what kind of ownership do you take of it and want to keep for yourself or let go. So yeah, there's parts of my faith that I grew up with that I definitely, I had a yard sale and got rid of some of it, and then some I'm like, nope, like these comics that I'm holding on to. Those are things that are really important to me that I'm not going to let go of because they mean a lot to me, or I believe deeply, or shape who I am, and that's it. Right, here we go. Next 2, both authored by Jason Aaron, and then on the Star Wars you have John Cassidy. If you could say, like, for me, when Marvel acquired the IP of Star Wars and brought it back to Marvel, or Disney and brought it back to Marvel, the dream team who I wanted to write Star Wars was Jason Aaron and John Cassidy. John Cassidy from the Astonishing X-Men run, and man, it is so good. I love what they did. It happened right. It kind of picks up right after A New Hope, before Empire Strikes Back. So it's the characters that grew to know and love each other, or figure each other out across the first original movie, A New Hope, but they still haven't found who they are in The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. So that story arc's still completing, and it's so good. The art's good, the storytelling, he captures their voice so good. And again, this was important to me because not only am I a Star Wars fan, that's my first love in fandom and geekdom, and then also the comics, Marvel, second love when it comes to geekdom, and those two coming together with some of my favorite creators in all of comics, you just can't beat it. So that's definitely going in the meaningful box. Don't lose this. I have the graphic novel of this and the single issues. So good. And then this Thor, the Goddess of Thunder, in this time when it happened, this was back in 2014. So the Star Wars run was 2015. 2014, I'm in Chapel Hill, different time in my life, reading comics, and the whole like gender swapping, or oh no, you're turning Thor into a lady, what does that mean? But if you haven't been reading Thor and what he was doing with Odinson, and wrestling with what makes a god worthy or not, and then who is worthy to pick up the hammer, in this deep meaningful story of Jane Foster, who is wrestling with cancer and has been praying and watched her mom die of cancer and is asking herself what God would allow this to happen or not, the problem of pain and suffering, but able to pick up this hammer. It was so good. And for 8 issues, you didn't know who this person was. And then you had the big reveal that it was Jane Foster. Not big spoiler because we've all seen the movie or maybe heard about it. But this particular Anne Dodderman, who's the artist on this, is so good. So this whole run means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Ryan Doze as well. And that particular run, I was able to talk with Jason Aaron about it with Tripp on his podcast over COVID, and that's what Ryan Doze heard. Our conversation, reached out to me on Instagram, and we immediately hit it off and became friends and started podcasting and met at Theology Beer Camp. And so that, not only that comic run important to me, but also the relationships that it opened up with Ryan and with Tripp and with others, and be able to literally talk with Jason Aaron about, he identifies as an atheist, but he also really appreciates the big questions that religion asks and wrestles with that. And so I think him wrestling with the problem at pain and evil is really honest, authentic way to do that, and articulates it in a way that that better than some religions do. And we felt that was really meaningful. And it's a great conversation that Tripp and I had with him on his podcast. And eventually Ryan got to interview Jason Aaron as well a number of times, a couple of times. Yeah. So these comics mean a lot to me, and they're definitely in the box. And not only they at the peak of comic books, I think, with writing and art, but also the stories they tell and the relationships they open up to me.
Yeah. That's the same run Jason Aaron with the God Butcher. Part of that too. Yeah. And
so that was his initial run, volume 1.
Me.
Yeah, God Butcher, that eventually led to a reboot with Thor, the Mighty Thor, Jane Foster.
God Butcher stories probably make it to my most memorable box too. Yeah, Jason Aaron.
That graphic novel, that hardback graphic novel, is in my meaningful box right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What's the other one he does? He does Goddamned, which I also think that's a really good one. It's the story of Cain, but what if the mark of Cain basically just didn't let him die? In kind of a barbaric world pre-flood. I mean, that one's a lot of fun. I don't know if that one's particularly meaningful to me. I just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for kids. No. Don't read that in your Sunday school class with kiddos. But
the name would give that away.
You would hope.
Yeah. Okay. My last two for today. Then I told you Middle West was going to make it. I think this is issue 4 or 6. I'm trying to remember exactly. Let me see if I can zoom in here for.
And that's Scotty Young.
Yeah, Scotty Young. It's issue 10. Scotty Young.
Okay.
I would say my all-time favorite fantasy graphic novel. Although Hunger of the Dusk it's getting there, but. Middle West, Scotty Young, really long one, but I read the whole thing on an island in a hammock, and it was just one of the most memorable times in my life, because it was like nice. I tend to overwhelm myself, and having I think I took like a week on that island, and was like, I'm just gonna unwind, some rum, which I definitely didn't bring because that's not allowed on camping. Anyway, the omnibus of Middle West, my best friend, campfire, and just this is it. But this whole story is a lot about generational trauma, what we inherit from our parents, how sometimes the villains are also the victims, and what do we do with it? How do we even make sense of any of this? Man, it was so just. I don't know. I got completely engulfed in it. Once I started it, I was just I lived in the story until it was done. I couldn't leave. So it was really hard for me to figure out what issue. But this issue almost stands alone, issue 10. What happened is our main character, who's on the run from his father, who's this abusive person who also turns into a literal tornado. He's a force of nature, literally, destroying everything in his path. There's a lot of really on-the-nose metaphor. But, he's on the run. He just made a new friend. They're trying to figure stuff out. And I think a troll is the one that told him, hey, actually, there's a wizard that you can go visit. And, it's the part of the story where if it was a usual fantasy novel, what you would expect, he's going to go up, he's going to get great wisdom, he's going to inherit some army or something, and then they're going to go out and beat the bad guy, right? But instead, he goes up, he meets this one that's supposed to have the answers. It's real mysterious. The one turns out to be his grandpa. And is a living blizzard, just like his dad's a living tornado, which implies some stuff about him that we find out later. And then it's okay, so his grandpa's actually kind of nice. We learn stuff. And then all of a sudden, his grandpa starts acting certain ways. And you're wait a minute, that's kind of like the dad. And then you learn it's actually just been a cycle of abuse this whole time. And then our character is already realizing that he can turn into a force of nature. So you're like, wait a minute, is the main character we're following just becoming another one of these? Like what? Now it went from you're expecting, oh, okay, we're gonna get the wisdom, the army, and we're gonna beat the bad guy to wait a minute, what if I also could become the bad guy? And now it's not how do I beat the bad guy, but rather how do I keep from becoming the bad guy?
Ah,
And it's like,
yeah.
oh man, that for me it was the turning point of the story, and I was like, okay, this is amazing. So to me, issue 10 has to be my most meaningful comics. Um, the other one's a weird one. Marvel
Wait,
Adventures.
real quick.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Middle West is Scotty Young just the author, but author and artist.
I think he does the art for that one too. I think he does do
Okay.
the art for that one too.
I'm
But
gonna
I'm
hunt that
not
down.
100% sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna hunt that graphic novel down. That's a good.
You should.
Yeah,
You really
I like
It's
that.
so good.
Mhm.
We could do a whole episode on it. Honestly,
do
we
it.
really could.
Let's do it.
Other one, first comic I ever remember reading.
Nice.
This is a weird one.
Yeah.
Marvel
Yeah.
Adventures Superheroes featuring Doctor Strange. So this is issue 9 of Marvel Adventure Superheroes. It was such a weird one. I had to like dig to figure out what this issue was. I need to find this so bad. I want to own it. I don't think I own it yet. But
You can find it on eBay. You can find that on
it's so funny
eBay.
too, because realizing that I remember this and that it stuck with me, it makes a lot of sense of why I'm so interested in law also. So what happens in this issue, Doctor Strange, it's like an alternate world kind of thing. Dormammu in this one finds his way to our world through alternative means because he can't just directly come because magic rules. There are rules to magic.
There are rules.
He basically becomes a squirrel to kind of find a little loophole. He ends in our world. Doctor Strange keeps fighting him. Can't figure out how to beat him. Can't figure out how to cast Dormammu, Satan, out of our world, basically. So you know what he does? He takes the rules of magic and he's like, I know where to go. I'm going to go to Murdoch and Nelson. So he shows up to Daredevil, but like as the lawyer, he's like, here are the rules. Let me read it. Let me explain what the language is because they don't know the language. So you have Doctor Strange reading this mystic language, explaining magic to these lawyers who are like, okay, wait a minute. What's that say? Okay, what does that mean? So you see Nelson asking these questions. Nelson's actually the one that really saves the day here. Good old Froggy.
Foggy.
Yeah. Dude, basically they discover after all this time, the Doctor Strange failing and can't cast him out. Right here, technically, if you understand the magic the way it's worded, he has to pay exact change for everything he does. So what does Strange do? He catches Dormammu buying a hot dog, but he doesn't give exact change. And since he didn't give exact change, by the law of magic, he is cast out of our world. And it's just one of those like, oh man, that was great. Just the loopholes, the legal stuff. And I don't like as a kid, I thought it was so funny. And now as an adult, I'm like, this explains so much of my personality.
It does. Like you wouldn't think. So Marvel Adventures was like the early 2000s, a way to get new readers for kids. So they had like the regular comics for probably an aging audience when it comes to comics. And, I don't know what 8-year-old is picking up like a Deadpool or Daredevil comic, but we have Marvel Adventures. It's a little bit more of kid friendly. So it's amazing to me that the pitch is like, hey, let's do a kid friendly comic and have them talk law with a lawyer. Boy, that'll get their attention. And for some reason, Ed hooked Joshua. He was like, yep, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna study the law. And they found a loophole with change to do that. I just love comics. I love comics. They do that.
It's so funny looking back at my own life because like that standing out to me, and then like the fact that like for a long time in college, I was in another world where I wasn't called to ministry. I'd be a lawyer. Like I said that a lot.
Yeah.
Now where I'm like, I'm not going to become a lawyer. It's not my plan now, but I do plan on getting a master's in legal studies and doing something with that because like I do really like law. And it's like, why did it take me so long to figure this out? Well, like as a child, I read this and was like, yeah, legally he can't be here. That's great. Like everybody
like that
reading where Batman punched the Joker. And I'm like, yeah, Doctor Strange got him. That was
Look
a
good
legal
loophole.
Yeah.
And that's why you like the book of Leviticus as well as all
Dr.
those Doctor Strange. Yeah. And again, like some of the comics are meaningful box. Some of them are stories are really meaningful to me and the relationships open up, but some of them are just like, some of the first comics I ever purchased or read. And so not necessarily their storylines great, but some of the images and the art and the characters that I saw move from page to page is really a lot of fun. So that's why there are certain creators and artists that I'm akin to because it reminds me of, what comic books I liked in the day, or different ways that they tell a story. So yeah, super fun, super fun. Thank you, Cindy,
Yeah.
Dr. Moreau, giving us the challenge to pick out the meaningful comics and
Yeah.
those kind of things. I really do like that. I'm gonna go through all my comics and donate some and sell some and give it away. But there's a handful of boxes that I'm gonna hold on to and say like, yep, don't get rid of
Yeah.
these.
Man, there's so much stuff that we didn't mention too. Like some of the earlier Nightwing runs that mean a lot to me. Darkwing Duck wasn't brought up at all somehow.
Man.
We did mention Gore the God Butcher barely.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, there's like the
Yeah.
early, not early, but the like 2000 teens Mark Wade Moon Knight. There's a lot of stuff that I could have mentioned.
Yeah.
This could have gone on for a while. I might need two
I
boxes.
have a whole box full. I could. We only
Yeah,
talked
a
about
whole
like
box.
six,
Yeah.
six of mine. I have a
That
whole
doesn't fill up a
box.
box. We gotta.
Doesn't fill up a box. We'll come
Yeah,
back and talk
you know
about it
what?
again.
10-hour episode. Let's finish this up.
Maybe I'll do a 2-hour live YouTube of me just going through and showing the page and go, that's
This
it.
one, and this
This
one,
one.
and
This
this
one.
one,
Oh, this is a
and
cool
this
one. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good times. You want to
Yeah.
shout out any more before we wrap this one up?
No,
Or?
that's it. That's it. If I was going to give any recommendations of like out of all those I've talked to, if whether you like X-Men or not, and you haven't read the initial run, Astonishing X-Men Gifted with Whedon and Cassidy, it's masterful story telling through the comic book means of not being too wordy, but letting the page show the emotion, but also telling a good story and the plight of what it means to be a mutant and what you're battling against and the world. The whole thing is about a cure, whether they should cure themselves or not, and how they got the cure or why they're going to use the cure. It's fantastic. So yeah, it's one of my favorite X-Men stories.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we wrap this up, I'm gonna be a good geekologist. I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper, really quick.
Okay.
Or not really quick. Up to you. Uh, you mentioned that part of why this came up is like you're thinking about death. You're thinking about like what you want to pass on or not pass on. So I want to
Right.
know, like, for you, especially like comic books, like people are like, oh, these are like the little funny stories where like Strange finds a legal loophole and banishes Dormammu. Is it important? Like, is it even important that we pass these on? Like, does it matter? And if so, does it matter who we pass them on to? Why we're passing them on? Any of that?
Well, that's a great question. My kids or great grandkids or others may could care less. But as I go through my parents' stuff, my dad's stuff, like there's different jewelry and pictures and books that I know were important to them. So because it was important to them, it's important to me. Now my dad also had like a bunch of Lee Child novels that every Father's Day and Christmas I would give him a gift certificate to Barnes & Noble when he'd go pick them up. So there's like 30 books on the shelf, and he just liked reading those during the summer. I'm not going to hold on to those, but there's a couple other books that I know he liked and are important to him and gave him entertainment that I'm going to hold on to and read them myself. And so who knows? And then even Cindy was like, yeah, maybe the girls do not want Thor #1, Jane Foster, but she could pass that on to Ryan and say like, here's Will's comic, and he's going to give to you because that was important to you, or to you. There's a Scotty Young variant cover that I'm going to say give this to Joshua because it has Alligator Loki and it's a Scotty Young alternate variant cover, Alligator Loki on the cover. He might like that. So you can pass on because it's important and it reminds you of the person that you care about. So the thing isn't important, but it's the memory that it gives you of the person who's important to you that makes a difference because it's important to them and they're important to you. Then that's it. So and it may be a classic story, maybe worth something. Yeah, maybe an heirloom that you can sell one day and buy a new car and be like, cool, thanks, Dad, or that kind of thing. But yeah, passing it on. And I look in my office and I see a lot of books. There's a lot of theology books here that I could probably do the same. If I could, in this entire office of all these books, if I could boil it down to just 10 books, the 10 most important books to me theologically, how would I do that? And then the rest, what am I going to do with them? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I'm weird. I think about death more than most people. I mean, to be fair, I died once, so that's probably part of the reason why. But like,
I almost did too. So we both had that in common.
Yeah. I have some books and things where I have like little like note cards or something, or sometimes I like to pass on to people before I die. Like I gave you the Dead Space graphic novel that like I had sent to you because I'm like, something about me is wrapped into that. Tiffany has 2 different versions of C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves that I annotated for her at different points in my life because I've like, whether she reads it now or after I pass, there's stuff that I need her to know that's important in this book, right? One of my Miss Marvel Kamala Khans, I've recently put a note card in it, like why I relate to this character. And part of that for me stems from like when my grandfather passed or different people passed. Like I so desperately wanted like any little thing, like an archaeologist, where I'm like, okay, why did he
Yeah,
like this?
yeah.
What little note did he write in his Bible, and what could it mean to me now? Like I'm that person who like digs. I want like any little thing I can hold on to. One of the things like my one grandfather did at the bequest of my father is he had a little tape recorder and he was recording some of his old wartime
Oh,
stories. And it was so interesting. Some of his wartime stories he would say, he's like, well, no one cares about that. But like to me, I'm listening to it. I'm like,
yes,
okay,
we
but I
do.
do care because I'm like, okay, even to
Hmm.
you, that was just like a little funny thing you did here. That tells me something about your sense of humor, why you thought that was funny. And like, I cling to that because like I want to know more about you so that I can carry on your legacy today. I don't know. I think it does matter.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why people write books, whether it's biography, autobiography, or even theology books that you can go back and read. So I wonder what I desperately want to finish this God as a Surfer book because, I want to get my thoughts on paper that, my kids, grandkids, whatever, one day would be like, yeah, I had a granddad that surfed and was also a pastor. I wonder what he thought about surfing, and write that down. I have,
Yeah.
some of my sermons to pass on. I wrote a little book about, that has kind of the Triduum sermons in it that I think Joshua has a copy of that. You can get it on
Yeah.
Amazon, and kind of gives a snapshot of kind of my theology and preaching style and that kind of stuff. So yeah, you kind of pass on, and
Yeah.
I find all that interesting. And when you have close ones, people who are close to you who pass away, then it's inevitable that you think of your own and what would
Yeah.
your death mean to others, and then what you want in your funeral, what do you want to pass on, what do you make sure that you tidy up and help others with, so when you're gone they're not as impacted or could help them later on. So
Yeah.
it's natural to think about those things.
We mentioned Scotty Young. This is we'll move on after this, but I gifted last Christmas Scotty Young's wig to my brother. Um, Similar to Middle West a little bit in that like it's kind of like how do you carry on that thing from your parents? Dish didn't deal with trauma as much. It's a lot. It's much more lighthearted, I would say. Um, Also more vibrant colors, but that's beside the point. Scotty Young did not do the art for that one, although I do have a Scotty Young sketch of the main character that my wife got me for Christmas, and it was awesome.
Nice.
But I got it for my brother, and I have like little note cards and stuff that I put in there because I literally gifted it to him, thinking he's not going to read this till I die. Matt doesn't care about comic books, but when I die, he's going to get all these notes.
Yeah, I put sticky notes on the
Yeah,
on the board and bag of the comics that kind of share why it's important. I try to,
yeah,
I'm not writing a whole novel, but a little sticky note and like why this was important to me at the time and that kind of thing, so that they can go back. It's not just the comic, but a little note on there why it made the box.
yeah. No, I like that. I like that. It was a good practice. Maybe more people will try this new comic book sacrament brought to you from
Condiment
yeah,
sacrament. That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I guess it's time we start wrapping this one up.
Let's wrap it up.
You mentioned what your number one. If you had to pick any of these to recommend, what it was, I'll say for me, it's Middle West. Even if it's not the most meaningful comic ever to me, it's one of the most meaningful, and I think it's probably the best written of the ones I talked about today. So, guys, if you missed the live recording this time, Facebook group, Patreon. There's different things you could do to be a part of this conversation if you want in on it for yourself. If you're on a laptop, consider rate and review our show on YouTube. This is on YouTube. Hit like, subscribe. If we get 50 likes, you'll get Will frolicking through the flowers. It'll be great. Thanks to all of our supporters who make these special YouTube exclusives possible. You guys rock, especially the ones on Patreon, because that's why we do this. And remember, we're all a geekdom priest. Till next time.